From the shadows of the radio towers,
This is the GayPHX Podcast.
your weekly dose of real talk,
Queer joy.
and community connection.
It's gonna be a good day, and everything is going to go my way. It's gonna be a good day. The sun is shining bright and it's here to stay.
Howdy, Phoenix. What happens when art hits the streets and local love fuels small business? We're going to find out. But first, we're still glowing after an unforgettable weekend. Saturday night was the Newtown Awards, and while we were honored just to be nominated for Best Couple, we're beyond excited to share that we took home the win for Best Dress. Huge shout out to my husband, Brian, the official fashion coordinator of our group, for picking out the perfect looks. Thank you to everyone who made the night unforgettable. Celebrating community is what fuels us, and today we're keeping that energy alive with two incredible voices who show how creativity, visibility, and hustle help shape our community. First, we talk with Jeremy Novy, street artist, activist, and the mind behind those iconic koi ponds and bold queer murals you might recognize. Then we sit down with Freddy Cortez of AZ Print and Ship, celebrating 4 years of helping locals, creatives, and small businesses ship, connect, and keep moving, whether across the city or across the world. Whether you're a fan of public art, passionate about small businesses, or just believe in building spaces where everyone belongs, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
You are listening to the GayPHX Podcast.
Where community comes first.
Hey, Phoenix, it's time for another round of Brian's Hot 3, where I give you 3 of the coolest, quirkiest, or downright can't-miss events from across the valley that are fun, fabulous, and full of flavor. Let's get into it. Friday, May 2nd, Glam on the Rocks at Thunderbird Lounge, 8 p.m., and it's free. Ready to start your weekend with a little glam and a lot of live vocals? Head over to the Thunderbird Lounge at 8 p.m. for Glam on the Rocks, featuring Phoenix's own live singing drag troupe, the Gender Outlaws. It's free, it's fabulous, and it's 21 and over, so grab your friends, grab a cocktail, and get ready for a night of pure queer magic. Friday, May 2nd through Saturday, May 3rd is the Arizona Puppy Weekend. It's time to wag those tails because the second ever Arizona Puppy Contest and Arizona Puppy Weekend are here. Celebrate the human puppy play community in Arizona and cheer on the contestants vying for the title of Arizona's Puppy 2025. Here's how the full festivities are going to go down. Friday, May 2nd at 8 p.m., meet the pups at Stacy's at Melrose. That is free. Come meet the contestants, grab a drink, and get in on the fun. Saturday, May 3rd at 1 p.m. is the Arizona Puppy Contest at Cobalt Bar. Tickets are required. Watch the pups strut, perform, and shine as they compete for the title. Saturday, May 3rd at 9 p.m. is Bark After Dark with Cyberpup After Party at The Rock. A $10 cover at the door or included with VIP. Party it up after the contest with beats, drinks, and puppy play vibes. A portion of each VIP micro sponsorship goes to the title holder travel fund. It's going to be positively unforgettable. Saturday, May 3rd, If I Only Had a Brain trivia at Oz Bar at 8 p.m. Feeling smart or just want to laugh your butt off trying? Head over to the Oz Bar at 8 p.m. for If I Only Had a Brain trivia. Win prizes, show off your smarts, laugh your ass off. Bring your smartphone, gather your brainiest friends, and get ready for trivia that's equal parts ridiculous and challenging. Prizes for the winners, sympathetic hugs for the losers. Either way, you're going to have a blast. And that's your Brian's Hot 3. Want more events, more photos, more fabulous in your life? Head over to GayPHX.com, get the latest on everything fun, local, and queer in the desert. Coming to you from the shadows of the radio towers, I'm Brian, and that's what's hot. See you then.
Want all the details? Head over to GayPHX.com, your one-stop shop for queer events, promos, and everything happening in the valley.
More stories, more voices, more pride.
You're tuned in to the GayPHX Podcast.
Phoenix, are you ready to unlock your wild side?
Chrome is back Friday, May 10th at Pat O's Bunkhouse Saloon. Join Arizona Men of Leather for a night where leather meets lust and dance meets desire. From 9 p.m. till 2 a.m., DJ Emerson, Hi Sir, and Moody are taking you deep into the night. Live BDSM demos, high energy beats, zero judgment. Come explore in a safe, sane, and consensual space.
Find your tribe. Find your thrill. Find your fetish.
Chrome. Friday, May 10th. Only at Pato's, 4428 North 7th Avenue in Phoenix.
Another voice, another vibe, another reason we love this community.
Today, we're welcoming someone whose art has transformed city streets into powerful messages of pride, resilience, and beauty. From koi fish to queer icons, his stencils speak louder than words, and his story is just as bold. Welcome to the rainbow-tinted microphone, Jeremy Novy. Howdy.
Hello.
So, let's start at the beginning. How did your journey into graffiti and stencil art begin?
So I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was studying art at UW, Wisconsin. And I started to notice that the city of Milwaukee started having a bit of urban blight. And as certain industry was leaving, including Milwaukee Tool, there started to become more boarded up buildings and things of that nature. And so I really wanted to do something that could fix the urban blight and make our urban landscape much more beautiful to look at. So I started doing stencils of doors and windows and putting them on boarded up buildings to create a conversation that we do not want our city to become like Detroit or Gary, Indiana, where whole entire neighborhoods are boarded up and vacant buildings are everywhere. And so I started doing that, and then it led into other projects.
What drew you to the koi fish?
I ended up spending 3 months in China studying ancient and contemporary art as a study abroad program. And when I came back, I had to do an art project. So I was really fascinated with the koi and hearing a story from a Chinese student that during the Cultural Revolution, they were told to destroy everything of the old to make way for the new. They could be arrested and put in jail for images of Buddha, Chinese lucky numbers, feng shui, any of these things that were hugely part of their culture for a long time before communism came through. And so they devised a plan that they were going to hide Chinese lucky numbers in koi paintings. So depending on how many koi are in a painting and what the title is, references a different Chinese lucky number, so history is never lost. So I was kind of fascinated by that, standing up against communism, the oppressor at the time, and trying to keep their history alive. But also this very fascinating thing that's happening in contemporary art in Asia, where they take contemporary materials mixed with like ancient art. And a very commonly known thing is they make scholar stones now out of steel, and they're highly polished, and they represent a mountain. And normally these scholar stones you'd find in pots with bamboos. They were used for different people who really wanted to go and meditate in nature and have these kind of thoughts about nature, but weren't able to go into nature. So they brought them into their houses, and they would have usually a small river stone that has several different holes in it, in that. And so they kind of have made them now out of steel, which is a very modern material, but also represents a skyscraper, which is the modern mountain found throughout Asia. And so I had the idea of mixing contemporary material of concrete with the traditionalness of nature and organicness. And as you travel at a lot of urban landscapes, you find concrete everywhere that has taken over grass, areas where trees would be, all of this stuff. And so I wanted to juxtapose the aspect of nature with the concrete and blending the two with like a koi pond out of concrete. into our urban landscape as a moment of zen when someone finds it, and something of relax and joy, hopefully.
Well, I have to say, every time that we stumble across it, it brings a smile to our face. It does. So it achieves your goal. Now, with everything that's happening in our current day and what you're talking about as far as the koi fish and what they represented as far as to try and prevent history from being wiped out, what is it something that we could do to try and prevent our history from being wiped out that's currently happening?
Yeah, well, they want to remove queer history from archives. They want to remove LGBTQ plus rights from the White House website and all of these things. But we can make art, and we can that documents our history and then talks about our history in a way, and tries to make it so it's never lost. And this is something that I've actually been doing for a number of years prior to our current administration, is by doing queer street art that represents our queer history. I have a series of different riots that happened throughout the United States. The very final one that was the tipping point that everybody knows of is the Stonewall riot. But there was tons of riots that happened in several cities and several states throughout the United States prior to Stonewall. And so I have made a bit of a logo, I guess you would say, or a single image that represents something of that riot. And I placed it on the street around the world, literally, so that people could see this image and maybe question what this image is about and start to create a dialogue or a conversation about our history in a way. Unfortunately, sometimes our books are defaced that are in libraries, or certain information isn't disseminated in a way to reach everyone. Whereas street art has the ability to reach 100% of the demographic. Whereas books, you would have to go to the library. If you put it on the street, well, you're forced to see it without having to go to the library or a queer archive in order to get this information.
Yes, and that means that the library has to be able to hold it or have it as well, versus it just being out there where you encounter it walking down the street.
Yeah.
So you're one of the few openly gay street artists in the U.S. How's your identity helped shape your art and your message?
What drew me to do queer street and put it onto the street was the fact that there was lacking visibility of us, of the queer community, and in so many different ways. And at the time that I was thinking about this was in 2006 and 2004. And back then, there wasn't really female graffiti artists or female street artists being represented. And it slowly started to become an issue, and people were talking about it, why aren't female artists being represented, and why are they underrepresented in the graffiti and street art world and mural world, being that they're just as present as male, street artists, mural artists, and graffiti artists. And so thinking about that, I was well, wait, where are the queer ones? Where are these, people that relate to me? And so I found it very important to put queer street art out there and queer images to combat the kind of misogynist, male-dominated, heterosexual world of graffiti. And it is nice that now, after several years, things are slowly starting to change. Yet we do not have a lot of queer murals. Murals are made to empower different demographics, and we have murals that empower women, immigrants, farmers, firefighters, certain neighborhoods, certain cities. And all of these murals are put up in a place to beautify that neighborhood, empower that neighborhood, and to talk about different people in a community and different people in the world. And by having a mural, it kind of starts to normalize seeing differences in the world or seeing different people in a way, and respecting them by having them out there. But we do not have a lot of queer murals. In some places we have none. To have a queer mural put up, sometimes you have to go through city approval, and cities still think that queer imagery is controversial. And on top of that, then we have different kind of religious groups or different groups that are proud of the hate that they like to project out into the world. And they will go around and deface kind of queer murals and queer imagery. And so by doing street art, there's actually no way of stopping that in the same way that you can deface a mural and stop that. Street art can be a very quick tool to put out an image. If it does get taken down or defaced, you can just go and put it up again. And you can just keep putting it up over and over again, very similar to the way that graffiti artists operate. So a graffiti artist may have like a wall or a street corner or something that they put their tag on it. And when another graffiti artist comes along and tries to deface it, they just go and put their tag back up over it. And then it becomes a little bit of a battle that happens overnight after night, week after week, month after month. And eventually one side wins, and one side is like normalized, I guess, in a way, or gets the space. And with queer street art, we have the opportunity to do the same thing by putting an image in an area where we may not be accepted, or putting an image up in an area where you want people to remember history or to learn about our history. Are things that I enjoy doing with my art to empower people and to make people see us and see us as being contributing people to society and normalizing our queer visibility.
Speaking of that, what city or project has been the most meaningful to you?
Well, there's a lot of different ones that I've done, but one that like truly I still love that it's there is when I illegally painted the Rainbow Crosswalk in New Orleans. So the New Orleans Pride Committee had talked to the city of New Orleans 3 years in a row, and they tried to have a rainbow crosswalk put in at Bourbon and St. Anne in the French Quarter, which is a historic neighborhood of like gay bars and kind of where the queers would hang out. And the city of New Orleans kept saying that it was too distracting to drivers to put a rainbow crosswalk there, which obviously was just their way of being politically correct and saying, no, we don't want this queer,
because it's
queer
colorful
rainbow there.
I mean, what was the argument?
Yeah, because it's colorful.
So the ads all around and all the signs on the streets, none of that's distracting, but a rainbow on the ground is.
Yeah, no, totally. This is Bourbon Street where there's tons of people walking. Some people aren't paying attention to cars that aren't like there. They're walking in the street. There's just like so much. You're like staring at neon signs or lit up signs and different things like on this area of the French Quarter. And so they just kept saying like, yeah, no, it's too distracting to drivers. So I actually went and changed the one-way sign that was there to say "Gone Gay" by adding 2 letter G's, 1 letter G in front of the O in one, and 1 letter G that actually went over the W in way, so that the sign said "Gone Gay," and it actually pointed to all the other queer bars that were in that area of Bourbon Street. And so that was pretty cool. The fact that it stayed up there for like 6 years, and you can actually go on Instagram and you can hashtag Gone Gay, and you will find tons of tourist photos, straight people, gay people, people's wedding photos, just like so many photos. Like this was not something that I had intended, that it would become a social media thing. Being it was a little bit before social media played a big role in my street art or street art in general. But it like took on its a mind of its own, I guess, or it took on a role of its own, and became this like Instagram sensation.
Well, I mean, isn't that really how the really good ones do it? Is because it's not intentional; it just is, and people just love something, so therefore it naturally bubbles up and becomes a meme or a thing.
Yes, definitely. That definitely is like I photograph my art, but a lot of times I really like enjoy the fact that other people photograph it, and I feel that I've accomplished something, or that I've gotten like a thumbs up to my art when someone else photographs it and someone else posts it instead of someone else defacing it or trying to remove it. I feel that like I've done something correct, and so that was a really cool thing to see that it had stayed up for so long. And when the city would come and try to remove the stickers, I would put the sticker back up, or later on it actually became different bar owners that would put the sticker up to continue it from happening. Yeah, like they actually loved it. There's a Bourbon Pub there in Oz, which are two bars right across from one another. And they really enjoyed the artwork being there, and they really enjoyed like my message. They had talked to me. They understood that I saw my art as a protest to the status quo of heterosexuality being the norm, and that like queer visibility is really important, and we shouldn't be said that we can't have rainbow crosswalks, or that we shouldn't show our queerness so loudly in the world. And so like that was really cool to have that happen, and so that's kind of like I don't know, something. And then also shortly thereafter, I actually went and painted a rainbow crosswalk in New Orleans, using the neutral ground sidewalk, which is kind of a sidewalk. Some people would call it a median that has a sidewalk, but in New Orleans they're specifically called neutral grounds, and there's a whole history to that you may want to look up. But I painted one at Meg's 440, across the street from Meg's 440, and the Phoenix bar, which the Phoenix historically was Smoky Mary's, a leather bar, and Meg's was Charlene's, which was a lesbian bar. And so that's also exactly where the gay parade, like the Easter gay parade, line up to go through, and then the Pride parade that goes to the French Quarter. They all kind of line up there. And so I just went and painted the rainbow crosswalk there, and people have since repainted it to like keep it vibrant and that it exists there. And this was, I think, in like 2013, 2012. So it's beautiful to see that New Orleans does have a rainbow crosswalk, and that it does exist, and that it's a protest to the city saying no, we can't have one, and trying to hide our queer visibility. And so I'm pretty proud of those two things, and their protests.
So do you see your work as activism or art, or a little bit of both?
I definitely see it a little bit of both. I definitely see it as art, but I definitely also see it as activism and as like a protest to the oppression of queer people that still happens. I do stencils of drag queens, and I put them up on the street. And I know right now the current administration and certain states are trying to ban drag shows, and there's all this conversation about drag story time, that supposedly drag queens are trying to teach kids to be drag queens as well, and none of that's happening. That's not really what we're doing, and so I really enjoy being able to put an image of a drag queen out there, and make people see that And there's no one for them to really confront because it's on the street and it exists by itself, where they may confront a real drag queen and try to be an argumentative or somewhat hostile towards a real person. They can't be hostile and aggressive to my poster or stencil on the street other than taking it down. So it's confronting these people. Yeah, it's confronting these people in like somewhat a non-violent way, or no one hopefully can get hurt the same way that a drag queen unfortunately may be beaten, or a transgender woman may be attacked. And so like these are ways of trying to normalize queer visibility. You know, we have this TV show called Will and Grace, and lots of people know it. It's, you know, I think reruns now. But when Will and Grace came on TV, all of a sudden it became normal to have a gay friend. All of a sudden it became somewhat normal for gay people that they're just trying to exist and live in society, and that they do the same stuff that the heterosexuals do, and that they exist in the world the same way as everyone else does. And so I think gayness, like, you know, the man-on-man relationship part became somewhat normal in society, and like everybody kind of liked Will and Grace, and, you know, it just kept having more seasons, and it was popular. And so, like, you know, that was great that we had a TV show that did that, you know. And now we have like RuPaul's Drag Race, which is somewhat normalizing drag culture and making it that, like, you know, they can see it for what it is and understand what they're trying to do and the art form that exists inside of drag. But I think that by maybe having transgender murals or transgender street art, that maybe we could normalize the existence of the transgender community, because you see them all the time, whereas unfortunately a lot of transgender people just try to blend in and try to hide because there's such hostility and such negativity towards them and existing in society, you know, and by having murals or street art would be a way to make people constantly see trans visibility without having the ability to attack a trans person. So that I really see, or I hope that other people see, is what my art is about. It's about this protest of, like, you know, our administration trying to put us back in the closet and take away, you know, HIV funding, and now they want to take away LGBTQ plus suicide prevention hotline for queer youth. Like, you know, I thought for a while that, like, you know, my art was just kind of blending in as more and more human rights were happening for society here in you know, the States. And I kind of saw my art as like kind of just like, you know, moving along. Prior to that, you know, being that I've been doing it for a long time, you know, we didn't have gay marriage rights or that, and we didn't really have adoption rights. And my art, while I was doing it, I saw these other rights come forth and things. And so I kind of thought that my art for a little bit wasn't so much of a protest. But now, since our current administration, I find my art to be very, very important, and that like having different queer visibility in different ways is going to be something that we strongly need to do from like here on out, everywhere in the world, and that.
Yeah, it's like if we don't fight for our existence, they just want to wipe us out, wipe us away, wipe us out of existence, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, forcing people to see us is what we need to do. We need to, like, not have them just turn a blind eye to us the way that they may turn a blind eye to genocide or homeless people or other things that happen in society that, you know, obviously are having a blind eye turn towards. And I think right now they want to turn a blind eye towards us as queer culture and people. And I hope that my art is one way that stops them from turning a blind eye because it's forcing them to see something.
And that's the same thing we're trying to do with our podcast by shining the light on the community and the different people in it to show that we're here, we're talented, and we're here to stay, and we're worth knowing. Come get to know us, come out and play. That's the whole point of trying to connect everyone with our website, with this podcast, with the interviews that we're doing. We love all the art that you do. I've got to ask, so you curated a history of queer street art. What was it like bringing together queer voices from a traditionally underground medium like that?
It was pretty amazing. I didn't realize how many artists there were in the world when I started. Like I had the opportunity to write a grant for San Francisco's Queer Art Festival that happens during the month of Pride. And I was able to get a national endowment for the arts grant, which was pretty amazing. And to put together this, like Obama had opened up so that queer organizations could give this money to queer artists. And the NEA 6, which is during the Reagan administration, was like Mapplethorpe and these artists that were making queer art about the AIDS things. They had gotten, National Endowment for the Arts grant. And because of the administration being opposed to AIDS and not wanting to respond to AIDS, when these artists made art about AIDS, it became highly controversial. And so they stopped funding the queer artists to not make this. And so it wasn't until 2011 that this became a thing where queer artists or queer organizations could give money privately to queer artists to do this. And so anyways, I curated this exhibit, and I knew of different queer artists that were in the States, and so I reached out to them, but I also asked them if they knew other people, and then I started using Flickr at the time, a little bit before Instagram, and the different ways that people would hashtag different photos, and then if like the same person posted an image over and over again, I thought that they were the artist, and I reached out to them. And I was able to put together 30 artists from around the world, maybe a little bit more, that all did queer street art. And it was about giving exposure to these artists, saying that this exists the same way that they were trying to say that female artists exist, but also to try to say that my art is important and that I'm not the only person doing this, that there's also a lot of other artists that are doing queer art. And in different places in Europe, it's like a big protest for them to put out the art because they don't have the similar rights that we have in the States, or we did have them, so for them, it was even more of a protest and standing up against the oppressors for it. And so it was quite an amazing thing to have. And then 2 years later, I had Yale University reach out to me, the Queer Studies program. They heard about my collection and they wanted to have a show at Yale in April 2013. So I was able to bring my collection to Yale and have an exhibit there, and they thought that it was really important. I've done for the collection. I have artists that are currently doing art, but I've also gone into different archives to find posters of ACT UP, Queer Nation stickers, a lot of different kind of activist organizations that did queer street art 100% as protest in the 90s and 80s, which is quite cool.
So what advice would you have for young queer artists who want to make their mark in the world?
Do it out of a passion. Do it out of a passion, and unfortunately know that you may have people tell you that it's not art. But if you as an individual have a passion for anything and you do it enough, it is art. If you're into music and you like play the music enough, and like maybe you're not the best or whatever, but enough people hear it, it's music, and if you do stand-up comedy enough, like it's stand-up comedy. And a similar thing, is with art, is if you do it enough, even if people don't pay attention to you at first, but you have that inner spark, that inner passion to like put it out there, eventually they will notice it, and it will be a thing. But like everything, like learning to ride a bicycle, it has its ups and downs, and you're going to have to fall down a few times to figure out how to really ride a bicycle. And certain things in the art world, sometimes you have to fall down a little bit to figure out how to make it better and make it more seen.
And where can our listeners see your work next, and how can they support what you're doing?
I'm putting currently in conversations about a show in November of Palm Springs Pride that will be a queer street art exhibit, mainly focusing on my art, but I would like to try to incorporate some other art that I have that's in my collection that is like 100% protest from other countries that are dealing with issues or have been dealing with issues for quite some time, as we start to deal with issues again, and trying to draw a similarity to the two. You can also find my art on Instagram. Jeremy Novy is my Instagram feed. So you can find a lot of art on there. And if you want, there's some galleries listed on my website or my Etsy page that has some stuff if you would like to collect art. Yeah.
Excellent. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, thank you. Like I'm really excited to kind of have a platform to talk about the importance of queer visibility and talk a little bit more about my art as being a protest, and for people to see it as a protest instead of all of a sudden cut it off because they see it only as graffiti.
New episodes, local voices, big queer energy. Subscribe now to the GayPHX Podcast.
What's something nice a parent or teacher has said to you?
You're special. I love you.
Make me smile.
That's a really good job.
How did that make you feel?
I think that really helps my confidence.
It makes me just feel good.
Let's teach more love in our homes and classrooms. Visit parenting.org from Boys Town to explore our vast library of resources backed by over 100 years of experience. For any age, any stage, Boys Town.
Uplifting the community,
One business at a time.
it's the Business Spotlight.
Today we're celebrating 4 incredible years of bold designs, local love, and small business support with someone who's been a part of the GayPHX journey from the start. From business cards to banners, AZ Print and Ship has helped Phoenix stand out literally. We're thrilled to welcome the man behind the press. Welcome to the rainbow-tinted microphone, Freddy Cortez. Freddie.
Hey, Billy, how's it going?
Congratulations. That's awesome. How's it feel to hit this
Thank
milestone?
you. Time flies. I initially didn't even realize it was coming up until about a week ago. My property management had reached out and said, "Hey, Freddie, your 5-year lease is up next year." I was like, "It is?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "We'd love to keep you on board if you're still interested in staying." I was like, I didn't realize it already had been that time. And he was the first to let me know last week that he's like, "Yeah, 4 years is next year, brother." He says, "When I first met you 4 years ago, you were walking around looking at empty spots, not really sure what you were doing or what you were talking about. And here we are 4 years later." But he says, "From what I can tell from your traffic and stuff, everything seems to be working out great." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "Send me the documents. Let's negotiate something." So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, what inspired you to start AZ Print and Ship?
So my history is I'm corporate human resources is my background. Did 20 years of that. Did it in nonprofit behavioral health for a really long time. Did it in some international business with some employees throughout the, in Europe and in Canada and the States and stuff. And just the usual, I was kind of getting burned out in that whole human resources thing. And so I thought, it's time for a career change. I just didn't know what it was. And so, I started having conversations with my husband, George, and I said, I'm thinking about changing careers. And he said, what are you thinking about? I said, honestly, I'm kind of thinking about opening up a business. He said, really? What in? And I said, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I said, I know that I like talking to people. I like the engagement of human resources. I like solving problems. I love that piece. I don't want something I'm sitting behind a computer and just kind of, doing data entry or anything. I really need that public engagement. I miss that piece. And so he said, well, go search out and figure out what it is that you want to do, and let's talk about it. So, I started searching online and everything, and my first concept I was thinking about was opening up a gift shop. I thought, I'll open up a gift shop. I'm going to have great customers. They're going to be happy because they're visiting Phoenix. They're visiting Arizona. They're going to want to take some knickknacks back with them when they travel. They're going to want to send off postcards to let them know where they're at. I thought that would be really fun, and it'd be really engaging. I'd be a great ambassador for Phoenix, tell them all about Phoenix and Arizona and all the great things about living here, because I truly do feel blessed being here since I've been here. And so I started looking into it, talking to shop owners and stuff, and what they thought about it. And then I realized that with the gift shop business, you've got to have a lot of foot traffic. That's your first thing, right? You've got to be somewhere where there's just a lot of foot traffic, because nowadays, or back then, I guess, and it's true now, everybody does their stuff online. Everybody buys their stuff online. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to find somewhere that's a high traffic area. So, and then when there's a hot item, I realized in inventory it would sell out really quickly, and then you got to try to get it in if it's still a hot item, whatever it is that season that's a hot item for tourists. And then if it doesn't sell, then you're sitting on inventory that nobody really wants to buy. So I was like, okay, I'll keep on looking on. So the next thing I started looking at were flower shops. I thought, maybe a flower shop would be a great way to start a business. I mean, it's usually happy events. You've got weddings, you've got birthdays, you've got anniversaries, you've got Valentine's Day, all that kind of stuff going on. So, I started talking to some flower shop owners and talking to them, what do you think about the business? How do you like it? Talking about 1-800-Flowers and all that other stuff, and how those contracts work with those folks and everything. And I a couple of things I realized then, right? First thing is I don't know how to arrange flowers. So I thought, okay, well, I don't know how successful I'm going to be at that.
that might be a deterrent, right?
And I realized, the bad thing about flower shops is they have a shelf life of about 2 weeks. So if you don't sell those flowers within 2 weeks, you're throwing away a lot of inventory. And like I said before, the other thing is I don't know how to arrange flowers. It was, my husband reminded me, you and flowers are not well blended together. So I thought, okay, well, that takes care of that idea. So then I thought, well, then I was driving. There's a Mexican restaurant that I like to go to over off of Bell and 35th Avenue, and there's a shipping and printing shop out there, and I used to see it all the time. And I thought about that. I was like, maybe that'll do it. I said, because if I think about this, people are going to bring their packages to me to ship off. So, I may have some inventory, but it's going to be a continuous business, and people buy their stuff online. They have to return their stuff. They get stuff shipped out. So then I started looking into that and, talked to some owners and stuff. And I thought, yeah, I can definitely do that. So I started, really digging into the shipping and printing business and, doing my research and seeing how you get the contracts and how you get it going. Spoke to my husband, and he's like, is this the one you landed on? I said, yeah, I think I can do this. And so that's how I ended up opening up a shipping and printing business. The first day I opened up, I remember a customer walked in and she's like, I need to ship a package. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know. I'd never shipped a package in my life. I mean, I saw training videos and stuff, but when you actually do it, you got to figure all that stuff out. And so
the reality is quite different.
It really is. There's all the research in the world. There's all the videos you can watch. But when somebody brings something into you and says, okay, I need to ship this to, Pennsylvania, I'm like, okay, so I go through and I stumble through it. And here I am 4 years later, shipping packages all around the world, to South Africa, to Europe, down south, up north. I mean, just dealing with all that I 4 years ago had no idea how to even ship a simple package 4 years later, I'm doing that. So that's how I ended up in the business.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot to know. Like, for example, we have an Etsy shop that my husband runs, and we didn't know that someone from Germany wanted to buy something, and they did, and then we had to figure out how to deal with the tax and all that other good gracious stuff. That was just a mess. So then we stopped selling internationally because we didn't know.
You're dealing with customs. And then every item that you ship around the world and even ship to the United States, every item has it's like a 6 to 8 digit code that's assigned to it. Every single thing that you can think of has a glass. To a purse, to a cross, to everything has a number assigned to it. So when it goes through customs, that number is the same in the United States as it is in Germany, as it is in Canada and stuff. So if you're shipping a ceramic mug, it's assigned this specific number, and so anywhere it goes in the world, when they see that number, they know that it's a ceramic mug, no matter where it goes. So you're having to learn how to figure those codes out as well, just for those international shipments. So yeah, it's a big learning curve for sure.
Yeah. Well, what was one of your favorite or most meaningful shipments that you've had to deal with?
Well, the most meaningful shipments for me, honestly, it's the ones that are going to the Army bases, right? Those always get me because they have to go post office. They can't go FedEx or UPS. Right. They have to go post office, and it's always it's the wife, it's the husband, it's the parents, it's somebody's shipping the care package off to their loved ones, in Germany or in Japan and that type of stuff. Those shipments, because they're so happy and eager to get them over there. They're not really sure what they're doing, right? They know that it's a base and this is kind of the information that they need, and they want to get it over there. So those are always the most meaningful to me, for sure, are those packages that are going to the military folks and stuff, because they're sent with love, and they're care packages.
Right.
Same thing. Yeah, you get those, and then you get the same option whenever you have like college students and parents that are sending stuff off to their college students in college. It's their first year, and that's always opens up a discussion of where they're going to school at. They're going to ASU, they're going to LSU and stuff. What are they majoring in? And they just love, it just opens up that conversation of what their kids are doing, and they're so proud of them, and they're in school now and they're majoring in this, or they're stumbling a little bit in this, so they're sending them a care package to get them over that hump and stuff. So those, I think for me, the care packages for sure are the most meaningful, because people take time to put what's inside those packages. It's just not a hodgepodge of stuff. It's stuff that they know that they're going to like. It's their favorite candy. It's the books that they read. It's that type of puzzles, that type of stuff. So yeah,
that's awesome. I love learning things like that. That's incredible. So, for our listeners that might need your services, what kind of things can people come to you for? Well, like, what do they not realize that your shop handles?
Right. So some of the basic stuff that people don't realize until they ask me is I do T-shirts, right? We do custom T-shirts. I got into custom T-shirts, and so I've done when I was coaching kickball in the gay league. I did shirts for them. I've done shirts for other teams. I've done shirts for other entrepreneurs, right, that they're starting out their window washing business and they need shirts for their and their crew, roofers, landscapers, that type of stuff. They don't realize, they're like, oh, you do shirts? I'm like, absolutely. You tie in those shirts with your business cards and with your website or your phone number, and it kind of gives you that image and stuff. So T-shirts are usually a big one that people don't realize that I do. I also do floor plans. We do blueprints. So, and it's always on the weekends when people come to my shop over off of 7th Avenue in Osborne. They're like, I need blueprints. The guys are there. They need the blueprints, and it's a rush job. They're like, I'm going to give them to you, and I need 7 copies, and this, that, and that, this, that, and stuff. So the blueprints is a big one that people don't realize that I do. I also do custom wrapping paper. That's one that's sometimes used and stuff. People can send, like, for instance, if you were hosting an event and you had, gifts to give away or swag to give to people, you can send me images of your logo. If it's somebody's birthday, you can send me pictures of them when they were a baby, and I can put that on custom wrapping paper that you can give to them and wrap their gifts in. That's a big one.
We may have to take you up on that. That wrapping paper with giving you our logo. So making note of that.
When people start putting their those images on there, you know what I mean? It's really neat when they see it come to fruition. yeah, they really like it. And then, of course, you got those sports teams that they really like. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, he's a big Dallas Cowboys fan, so I'm going to send you some of the Dallas Cowboys stuff. Can you put that on? And it's his birthday, and that's his whole theme, and they love it. They got the wrapping paper and that stuff, too. So, yeah, that's another product that people really like.
Very fun. What do you think sets AZ Print and Ship apart from the big box print stores and shipping places?
Well, easily with my shop, right? I'm contracted with all the carriers, so I do UPS, FedEx, Post Office, and DHL. So I can send those, and people love that, right? Especially when they have returns, and that happens every day. I've got somebody bought something from eBay, they bought something from Amazon, they bought something from Etsy, and they're all different returns. One's returned via FedEx, one's using UPS, one's maybe using the Post Office and stuff. So for my niche for sure is that you can bring all those different carriers to my one location. Other than that, you have to go to you have to go find the FedEx location, you have to find the UPS location, or you have to go to the Post Office. So with my shop, you get all those different carriers, all those different returns and stuff. And on the flip side of that, if you're sending something to Guatemala, right? The benefit with my shop is I can give you the rates for UPS and for FedEx and DHL for international shipments, and also give you the rates and look at the time frame, right? So if you go to UPS and they're only they can get it there, let's say next Wednesday, but FedEx can get it there Sunday, that type of stuff. That's where I have a step above those franchises is that I have the ability to quote prices from all three carriers, and including their time frames. If you need something, let's say in Dallas tomorrow by 8 a.m. or by 10:30 or by 2 o'clock, I can tell you which carrier is going to get it there. They're guaranteed to get it there by that time, and in that time frame that you need. So yeah, I'm able to ship worldwide, or to Tucson, or to Payson, and figure out if UPS is going to get it there quicker, FedEx is going to get it there, Post Office, or for DHL for international shipment. So that definitely puts me a step above the UPS franchises, the FedEx franchises. As a matter of fact, they often refer to me. I've had customers tell me, hey, the FedEx store told me to come over here because you do FedEx and UPS and Post Office, and you might be able to get this to Germany quicker, and DHL. Hey, the UPS guy said to come over here to you because his rate or his time is not what I need, and he said you might be able to do something better with DHL or FedEx. So it makes me feel great that I'm being referred even from those people in the same field as I am, because I offer a bigger variety of shipping options for sure, right? And so that definitely helps out tremendously. And I'm able to help customers even make decisions on which is the best carrier for documents, as opposed to getting an item that's boxed somewhere, that type of thing. Also, plus with me, because I'm independent, I can decide what I want to put in my shop and what I don't want to put in my shop, right? I support our community. I can put my LGBTQ stuff there because that's what I choose to do. That's who I am, and that's part of my community. And so I'll represent those folks. If there's a local, and I have like a friend of mine sells some essential oils. He wanted to, see about selling some in my shop. Let's absolutely do that. That's the benefit of being an independent operator. I get to choose what's going to be in my store. I don't have to report to a franchise or a corporate and see if they're going to allow me to put, somebody's stuff in my shop. Let's try it out and see how it works. If it doesn't work, we tried, that type of thing. So I definitely have a lot of a step above all the other the franchises for sure. And I'm really proud of the services that we provide. I'm proud of my staff that we have, diverse staff for sure. But you go. You go to my 7th Avenue and Osborne location, and trust me, you'll meet Rebecca, my employee that's been with me for a couple of years, and people love Rebecca. She bends over backwards to help everybody out. She'll grab a hold of that phone if, for folks that don't understand how to email a document that they need to email to us and that type of stuff. So yeah, I definitely am proud of the service level and the different product lines that I have available and services available.
So then that also ties back to your wanting to have a gift shop, because then you get to have partially a gift shop inside of your shipping store, correct?
I still got that too. As a matter of fact, you're right. I didn't think about it, but you're right. I do have some knickknacks from Arizona. I've got some dog stuff. I've got some, and then of course I've got the sunglasses and the little electronics for, hey, I lost my charging cord for my phone. Do you have that? Do I have the batteries, that type of stuff. So Yeah, and like I said, I'm always looking for a new line of business to put into these shops because, like we were saying earlier, I learned from my CEO in my former career that you've got to really diversify your line and the services you provide. You know, we do mailboxes. I do physical mailboxes for folks that come in and want to come check their mail, but I also do digital mailboxes. And I can tell you the trend right now is a lot of folks are expats are heading out of the country. We're spreading our wings and heading off to Spain. It's a safe place for the gay community over there. They're heading over here to Ecuador. They're going to different places, but they want to keep an address here in the States. They want everything as if they still live here. So my stores become their home address for a lot of expats that live throughout the world. I'm just dealing with one. She's getting ready to leave, I think, here in the next couple of months and stuff, and she set up one of the digital mailboxes because she sold all her stuff here in Phoenix. She just sold her house. She's living, one of those 30-day Airbnbs until she gets ready to move to Ecuador. She's super excited. She already knows where she's going to live, but I will be her home address moving forward. She came in, introduced herself to me, wanted to meet me, wanted to know the kind of person I was going to be handling her mail, who's going to be in here, whatever, that type of stuff, walked her through the process. So, yeah, I offer a lot of services, and I don't mind talking to people about the different options they have available.
Excellent. And so what's next for the shop? Any new services then that you're going to add?
Yeah, good question. I am currently in discussions with ChatGPT to see if there's any options that are out there that he can help me come up with. I look into everything, I do the fingerprinting, I do the posters, I do the banners, I do the business cards, I do, I do the mailboxes. I'm doing it, any and everything. I'm do U-Hauls. I do U-Hauls too. So there's that piece. I've done U-Hauls as well just to try to get that in there, moving supplies and all that other stuff. But it's, the ideas are kind of thinning out right now. I look to see what other folks are doing, and I think I've got a full boat going right now with all the services I can provide. But I'm always open, and I tell people that if they come in, they're like, "You do a lot of services." I'm like, "Thank you. If you come up with one that's legal, throw it my way. I'm open. I'm open to trying anything. I'll try it once and see if it works or not." So yeah, right now it's just kind of, steadying the oar with the boat on these two stores because of all the stuff that's going on right now, right in the national level with tariffs and not tariffs, and are we allowed to ship there? Are they not accepting packages anymore? Dealing with all that stuff just like everybody else is. Dealing with it on the business side and stuff, so kind of just not really expanding anything other than making sure that I understand that if a package is being sent somewhere, the process it takes to make sure it gets over there okay.
And lastly, where can people find you, follow along, or start their own project with you?
Right, so I have two locations. I have one over near Melrose off of 7th Avenue and Osborne between Indian School and McDowell and Thomas. It's 3409 North 7th Avenue. That's the first store that, again, I'm celebrating my 4th year with that one. Today's my 4th year anniversary, as we were talking about earlier, so I'm excited about that. I opened up a second location off of 12th Street in Glendale, which is kind of basically like Glendale and the 51, that type of area, in a little strip center out there and stuff. So it's kind of neat how the two shops are similar services, but my second location definitely does more international shipments. For some reason in that area off of Glendale and 12th Street, I get a lot more people coming in for DHL and UPS and FedEx for international shipping. They're sending stuff. When this whole stuff with the administration had occurred, and that's something else about my business. I kind of see trends going on. When this whole thing happened, when our current president got elected, folks started sending all their critical documents back to their home countries. They were adamant that in case they were going to get deported, in case they were going to get picked up, that they knew that they weren't going to be able to get a hold of those documents, their birth certificates, their documents to their vehicles or their cars or their houses. So I saw a huge influx of people shipping back critical documents back to their country, back to their families and stuff. Wow. So, yeah. And so that was a huge thing. That shop still does a lot more international shipping. It just does. I have people constantly coming. For some reason, I'm not sure why.
That's fascinating.
People, they do a lot of international shipping there. This other shop that the first location off of 7th Avenue in Osborne, does more the domestic shipping and stuff. There is some international shipping, but that one's more domestic. And I do a lot more, the services that I do out there, a lot of fingerprinting, because in that location, right, you've got dentist office, you've got dental schools, you've got medical schools, you've got nursing schools, and so a lot of those folks, you've got the medical dispensaries and stuff, and they all need background checks. So that one is we're constantly doing fingerprinting and background checks for folks at that first store. It's just a difference in the service. All same services across both stores, but you know what I mean. It's always
the demand is different.
To me to see the difference. Yeah, the demand of just from 7 miles away from each other and stuff. Yeah, the demand is. It's really. I mean, another thing like I learned, right? I mean, when the Indian School location, my first store. When the economy was not so good and people could not afford apartments, my U-Haul rentals were next to nothing, right? Nobody was moving. Everybody was hanging on to their leases for dear life, because every time that their lease would come due, when they tried to find anything else that was available, all the other prices were outpriced. So everybody was stuck in nobody was renting U-Hauls because they couldn't afford to move. Once the rental prices started coming down, that's when I started seeing a big influx in U-Haul rentals, because people could actually finally afford to say, you know what, I don't need to pay this high rent. Somebody else is actually doing a promotion. I can get a bigger place for less money, that type of thing. Or now we've got enough that we can actually afford to buy houses. So then that started helping people moving out of the apartments and stuff. So I find things out about the community, about the city and stuff, just from the services that I provide at each store, which I always find fascinating too.
That's incredible. That's really, really fascinating. Well,
yeah.
Freddy, thank you so very much for spending time with us today, especially on your 4th anniversary. So once again, congratulations on 4 years.
I appreciate that, Billy. I'm really excited. Yeah, I am excited. Time flies, as you know, and stuff. And so I'm really excited. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate the time to talk about my business and my services.
Pride isn't just a weekend, it's a way of life on the GayPHX Podcast.
This May, the Arizona puppy community comes together to crown their next champion. It's loyalty, spirit, and a whole lot of wagging tails.
Hey pups, it's me, Pup Lexi, and you already know what time it is. That's right. It's the Arizona Pup Title Contest, and it's going down Saturday, May 3rd at Cobalt. Come see who's got the heart, the bark, and the bite to wear the next AZ Puppy Sash. We've got handlers, tail wags, and enough puppy love to fill the whole bar. I'll be there, front and center, hosting the contest. So make sure to get your tail down to Cobalt. We start at 1 p.m., and let's make some noise for our contestants. Stay frisky, Phoenix. I'll see you there.
That's right. Catch all the action at Cobalt Bar, Saturday, May 3rd, kicking off at 1 p.m. Come early, grab a drink, and show your support for Arizona's next puppy.
Thanks for hanging out with the GayPHX Podcast. Be kind. Be bold. Be you.
Big thanks to Jeremy Novy and Freddy Cortez for sharing their journeys and reminding us that visibility matters, whether it's painted on the streets or carried in every package we send. Today's stories were about creativity, connection, and building spaces where we all feel seen. For more community spotlights, upcoming events, and photo galleries, head to GayPHX.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It helps new listeners find their place in the GayPHX family. And don't forget, this Saturday is the AZ Puppy Title Contest. We'll be there. We hope to see you as well. This is your community podcast, and your voice belongs here. We'll see you next week.
We're together, the sun is bright, and there's nowhere better than by your side. We're together, the sun is bright, and there's nowhere better than by your side.
Thanks for hanging out with the GayPHX Podcast, because fabulous people deserve fabulous conversations.